Okay, we're recording now, so before we were not. So we got people here. Let's see. Do you get another haircut? I cut my hair a little shorter. Not today though, but I'm a little bit shaken up today because I just found out that somebody copied one of my assignments from an old from last semester or from a year ago, 202. And now they're using it in their own TO2. And I gave them the assignment as a reference, and I told them not to use it, but they're using it again. We're almost verbatim, so it's like plagiarism at the level of instruction, which is weird. And I don't like using the same assignment multiple times because the solution's on the internet now. You know, like people can Google it, and you know, it's not good. So, plus that's a really, really hard assignment. You ask anybody in the Discord about the first assignment in 202, the unigram bigram, and they'll tell you it was like a horrifying assignment. It was extremely hard. So it's not even that great of an assignment to give in 202. It's too hard. People said that. So anyway, was a little bit shaken up because of that. But all right, we'll see. I post everything on Discord if you want to see them, if you're curious. Anyways, so let's just go ahead and jump right in then. Let me switch over here. Well, I mean, you're not supposed to use other people's work. Like, imagine that I make something and somebody else calls it their own. You know? That's weird. Why is it not? There we go. Okay. I gave them they're a graduate student, they're a PhD student who is teaching for the first time. And I gave them all my content as reference. And your very own TA, he's going to be teaching 135 in the fall. So I guess if you fail the class, you can take it back with him again. No, but I'm saying he will be teaching in the fall, and he'll be here. He can see all of my assignments, you know, and he can use them as reference, take some concepts from it. But you know, he's not supposed to just copy paste the same exact assignments and use them, right? You know, no, you're not supposed to do that in general for anything. You know, you don't copy and paste somebody else's paper. You can use it. You can cite it. You know, you can use pieces of it that you think are nice and cool and genius, but not the same thing. So, anyways, okay. So today we're gonna pick up where we left last time. So we rushed a little bit through like the Linux stuff. So this time I'm gonna show you how to do a hello world program. And then once we have it running and it actually runs locally, then we'll go through the same process of sending it to Sally to verify that it works, and then sending it back, and then submitting it, I suppose. Yeah, I suppose the first assignment is like I came up with the idea, but I'm guessing it's not that original, you know. But yes, the first assignment I'll go over. In fact, you know what? I might just do the first assignment here live, not the exact same text, but the same idea, because it's not that super complicated. So we'll use that as an example. Like, I think you're supposed to use part of the Constitution, so I'll do a different part of the Constitution. You know, you guys pick an article or an amendment, and I'll do that. So yes, but before that, there was a tiny little bit of notes that I was going over last time, and then the iPad stopped working. It started working even before the lecture finished. Yeah, we can do the Declaration of Independence. That's a good idea. So anyways, that was the comparison between syntax and semantics. And that's when the pen kind of died out. So I wanted to kind of finish on that. You think the one on Canvas expired? It's possible that they might have used the 100 links. At the end of the class, I'll update the link on Discord on Canvas. All right, so yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. Just remind me, because what happens is when you join, you're supposed to hit the rank of student, like put question mark rank student. If you don't, it'll kick you out immediately after. That's so that if somebody wants to come in for like a temporary stay, and then they want, you know, they're not actual students, they can do that, so they can like visit per se, and also it allows me to track who's who, and. Sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second there. But yeah, I think if you do that multiple times, I put the limit to 100, so they probably like maxed it out. But anyways, let me see. Okay, so I was telling you guys about syntax and semantics, and I just want to finish with this. I would also like to know if you get to go over what. Oh, so here's what I'm thinking. Like as I cover the material, I'll go over the assignment description. So like once you know how to do cout, then we can go over the first assignment, which, as I said, in this case I'll kind of do part of it. But once we cover like arithmetic operators, which is the one that so the second assignment was made by Dolly because we agreed to make some assignments each and we shared them all. That one, once I finish covering like arithmetic operators, then I'll go over her assignments. And once I go over if statements, then I'll go over the third assignment. And if, you know, it ends up being that like we don't cover if statements until like Monday of next week, then I'll delay the deadlines, because right now I think they're due like 1, 2, 3 are due on Sunday. So those are potentially can be moved behind if we don't finish covering everything by Thursday. So if by Thursday we don't finish like if statements, then the third one will be moved back. I'm pretty sure the first and second will stay as due on Sunday. And I'll just kind of keep that Sunday deadline so that you guys have at least like a few days to do them. But yeah, as I go over the topics, I'll cover them. Because if I try covering assignment 3 right now, I have to talk about an if statement, and you guys are going to, I mean, if you've never heard me before, you're going to be like, what? And that's okay, because we'll go over that. So we'll do it as it goes. All right. So syntax and semantics, I was saying syntax is the grammar or rules of the language, and semantics is the logic or meaning of the language. And when you have a syntax error, that is something that is a grammatical error, like a missing period or things like that. In the case of a programming assignment, you will see that all statements or all lines of code are supposed to end with a semicolon in C++, and that's just a thing you have to do. It's kind of like putting a period in the sentence. Here you put a semicolon. If you don't have that, that's a syntax error, and your compiler, when you compile, when you do G++, it will catch it, and it'll give you an error. And I show you very briefly, but I'll show you again some examples of that. On the other hand, semantics errors, those are the logic errors. So those are the kind of errors that you get when what you wrote is grammatically correct, but it doesn't make sense, or simply it's saying not what you want it to say. So that's like when you accidentally tell someone something and it was the wrong thing. Like if somebody asks you, is the earth flat? And you answer yes, that's wrong. The earth is round. And so that would be a semantic error, because yes is correct, as it's an English word, it's all good, but the meaning is wrong, okay? Or another example could be like China is in Asia, okay? In the continent Asia. And instead of saying that, you accidentally say, yeah, flat earth probably triggered it. So, and then and somebody might say China is in America, and maybe it's an accident that they said that, you know? Maybe, well, China's a really big country. Let's go with an obscure country like Monaco, or even, well, Monaco's not that obscure. I don't know. Well, maybe Cote d'Ivoire, right? Cote d'Ivoire's in Africa, but like it's possible someone might think it's in Europe. Because it sounds French, because, well, it's French, but yeah, it's a French, it was a French colony, I believe. So anyways, if I say Cote d'Ivoire is in Europe, that is grammatically correct. You know, if I spell it out, like I say, oh gosh, now I gotta figure out how to spell Cote d'Ivoire. It has like a weird accent somewhere. I think it's like that, but I think there's like a little hat here. But anyways, Cote d'Ivoire is in Europe. That's wrong. Well, Egypt is obviously, it's Ivory Coast. Let's go with the English name. Yeah, that's right. Ivory Coast is so much easier to figure out. So let's just say Ivory Coast is in Europe. That's wrong. Even though the sentence is grammatically correct, like spell checker would run through this and be like, you're all good. It's wrong in the meaning, because it's not in Europe. It's actually in Africa. Another example of a problem you might run into is a numerical problem, right? If you're supposed to do something X amount of times in your code, but you do it a different amount of time because you typed the wrong number that it's supposed to loop over, and we'll go over loops eventually, that could be another kind of a semantic error. That would be like saying it takes 14 days to recover from the virus. And in reality, it takes 21 days, or it's a variable number, right? Then that could be something wrong in the semantics of that, because the meaning is wrong, but the grammar is right. So that's basically, as I show you each of the sort of parts of a programming language, I can show you examples of of semantics and syntax errors of those. And I think after that, you'll catch on better. You can bet 100%, like I said last time, I love asking people what syntax and semantics are, even in 302. Like, it's just randomly there in the test. So I love asking that because I think it's a very important thing to understand. And if I just ask it enough times, you'll eventually get so pissed that you'll actually learn it. So yes, I know it seems obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people that even know what they are will still sometimes get it wrong. That's why I was making fun of Gucci, because in 302 he was really, really smart, like top student, and yet I think he got a perfect score in his test, except for this where he got that wrong, and it was funny. I make fun of him. He's smart. He knows he's cool. But anyways, yeah. With looping, you can run into those kind of situations. So that's right. Okay. So I wanted to kind of just make sure that I finished going over that. I guess I didn't really need to write much, but there you go. And now we're going to start coding. So we're going to be coding in a language called C++. So I guess for that, I'll write it in the new notes. And like I said, I'm thinking in the past I had it. Well, this is still in the Google Drive. The problem is I have to give permission to everybody to access it by hand, one by one. And it's just it's a pain, to be honest. So what I might do, if you want to have a copy of these PDF notes, is like maybe every Friday I'll just log into Google Drive and like download them and put them on Discord. And I can do that. Or maybe I might do that more than once every week, but it might just be the easiest thing to do that. The reason I want to do it daily is because like right now I modified last week's notes, and now we have multiple versions if I share them. So maybe I'll wait like a day or two to make sure we don't touch the notes anymore. Because the Google Drive method was perfect last semester, but then at the end of the semester I had to go in and remove everybody or add more people, and when I was doing that I had to do one by one, and it was just painful. Like when I did it last semester, I had to type everybody's email by hand. There's no automated way. It's super dumb. So yeah, it's unfortunate, and there's no way to easily make like a hot link. So I'll just do that probably for the notes. I don't think we should have that many notes anyways in here. So like I said, most of it will be just coding, but last class we had a lot of notes. So anyways, we are going to be learning C++. C++ and C are not the same thing, by the way. However, you can run, it used to be all, but now it's like you can run most C programs in C++. And in fact, a lot of the methods that you're going to learn here are actually C, the C language. We don't even use that much. I mean, when we use vectors, because we will in one assignment, that will be a case where we're actually starting to use C++ actual content. But even like a for loop, the for loop that we learn is a C for loop. If I have time, I can show you a range for loop, which is more C++. So even though the class is called Learning C++, you're really learning C for the most part. Once you jump into 202 material, that's when you really learn the C++, or I would say the plus of the C, C++. So don't feel bad. That's okay. I mean, a lot of people code like this in C++, but I'm just giving a sort of a disclaimer in that sense. But that's good, because if you ever want to code in C, it'll be super, super easy to pick up the language. And I mean like a day at the most to be able to code. So in a way, that is the one advantage. You're learning both C++ and C. In fact, some of the CS classes are in C only. So that may be one of the reasons why. Which language is easier? C# is very different than C++ and C. C# is a Microsoft language, and it's supposed to mimic Java. It's object-oriented. Most of these things it'll make sense in 202 with the object-oriented part, but they're just completely different languages. I'd say C++ is the easiest one of those, because if you're really coding in pure C, it gets a little bit. If you remember the conversation about high-level language versus like assembly versus machine code, C is like, if it was a spectrum, if you think of the languages as a spectrum, like from like super high to low level, and here you got something like C++, and here we have like assembly, like x86, and here we have just like machine code. C is kind of like more closer to the assembly world than it is to the high language world. It's like closer, so it's more bare bones. So like you're not coding in assembly, which people hate most of the time, but you're not also coding with such high level language like easy stuff. It's useful in that sense because you can optimize it better. So it's kind of like it's kind of like the best of both worlds between a high-level language and a low-level language like assembly. I was hoping we'd learn Fortran. I think if you take CS 130 something, no, not 135 obviously, but like CS, there's that Fortran class. It's like CS 114 or something that you can take. But you don't want to learn Fortran, to be honest with you. It's a dead language at this point. Even C++ is like not what it used to be. Java is the one that's kind of really dying nowadays. You want to learn like Python's, like that's the one you want to learn. If you're not in CS and you just want to pick up a language, you want to learn Python. If you're in CS, you have to learn C++ because all the classes are started in C++. But I'm just saying if you're just here for a language and then you want to move on with your life, Python is the way. Quote me on that. At least in 2020. 5 years from now, different language. Just like 5 years ago, I might have said Java. It just changes. It's mutating. It's not like real languages where like English has been established as the main language in like a lot of the world, or as the international language, right? And that's probably not going to change anytime soon. Where languages, it changes way fast. In 20 years from now, we may have a language that's super popular that doesn't even exist today. Like maybe Google's Go, or there was one other language that was really growing in popularity. I don't know, but yeah, nobody can predict that kind of stuff. Yeah. Oh, nah, he knows. I made fun of Java even during my dissertation defense, and people laughed, and he just quietly looked at me in anger, and I was like, oh no. But yeah, anyways. Okay, so, do I want to give some of these definitions? No, I don't think so. I think I'll just start coding, and as I code, I'll define some of the most basic sort of terms, okay? So let me switch over. Oh, hold on, let me move this out of the way. Okay, there we go. And then let me pop a terminal open. Let me kind of put it in the right spot. Put a folder here so you can kind of see what's happening. And then let's go ahead and just delete all of this stuff. Let's start from scratch. Okay, so we are gonna write our first ever program, even though we wrote one last time, but this time I'm gonna actually walk you through what each of those little pieces of the code are, okay? So the first and foremost thing was we were talking about what editor to use, right? And there's a lot of them, but I like to use Visual Code, and I know I kind of just told you to Google it last time, but I can probably give you the correct way. In fact, actually, when you launch the program, I remember it actually tells you to how to, because I haven't actually updated the Visual Code. It tells you what you need to do. It tells you this: Microsoft is now publishing an official snap of Visual Code, Studio Code. So I guess if you do snap install code, I think that'll actually install it. So you can try that for installing it. If not, I think you can also get it from the quote-unquote App Store or whatever that's called in Ubuntu. By the way, Visual Studio Code is available in, I think, all OSs. So Mac, definitely for Mac, I think. And for Windows, there's Visual Studio. So, yes. We have the Pro version for free. Yeah. Oh, that's kind of a... Wait, you do? So maybe, do I not have the Pro version or something? VMware, yeah, I did tell them about VMware. By the way, Cat was the CS person. If anybody still has problems with the CS accounts, he can hook you up, I hope. But yeah, so VMware is better than VirtualBox for the virtual machine. However, the one thing I don't like about VirtualBox is the fact you can't do multiple monitors. Like, I can never figure that out. Well, the CS account is what you use to log into Sally. So you want to make sure that's working. That's when you do like SSH Sally. So anyways, here I have Visual Code open. So in this case, I don't actually ever open it like that. What I do is I make a file first. By the way, don't call me Cacho. Call me Fonseca. Fonseca is my last name. Cacho is my mom's last name. So yeah, or just call me Doc. But no, I don't even have the Pro version. For the longest time, I would just code in gedit. Historically, I first coded in Windows. I was doing like game development and stuff, and I would code in Visual Studio, and it was great, Visual Studio 2010, I think, or 2008, I don't remember. But then I did the school stuff, and I learned Linux, and then I just started coding in gedit because I couldn't be bothered to download an IDE. I tried Eclipse for a while and a couple of other editors for the Java class, like Peterson's classes, and then eventually I tried Visual Code, but I never really went to a debugger even, except for GDB, which I'll show you guys at the end of the semester. So you don't need an editor, but it is definitely convenient. So anyways, Nano's great because you can edit files on the go in Sally. So I'll show you that example of that. Like, say you submit a file to Sally, you test it and it doesn't work, and then you do a tiny change. It's faster to do that change on Sally than it is to, you know, fix it locally and then send it again. You can do that too, but I'm just gonna show you sort of that process. So anyways, I'm gonna make a file by saying nano, let's call it something other than hello, my first program.cpp, okay? And that just makes a file, but if I close it without writing anything, then it won't save it. So I'm gonna go ahead and just put a pound and then put Control X and then press Y and then press Enter, and that just saves it. I actually, where did that save it to? Okay, so we put that like in a random spot in the computer. So, okay, that's okay. We're gonna refresh on how to move it into the CS135 directory. So I'm gonna use the MV command for moving, and I'm gonna type in my and then press tab to autocomplete because I want to have to type that whole thing. And then I'm gonna, oh, what are you doing? By the way, this is my dog. So yeah, go. I'm going to, where is this? So I'm gonna guess it's in desktop and then CS135 and then 1. Let's do 1. Let's put it inside of the 1 folder. Is there anything there? Yeah, there's garbage from last time. All right, now there's not, okay. And then, thank you. Now I'm going to put a period here. You know what? I don't like looking away. What I can do is I can move this a little bit this way. Just a little bit, I guess, because the cable doesn't reach. That way you're not looking at the side. You're looking more at me. Okay, so I'm going to press Enter. And there you go. You could see it appear there, and it moved it, basically. So good. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and open this with Visual Code or your preferred editor. Just to show you what it looks like, let me show you what it looks like on gedit. Open with gedit. It's just literally like Notepad, as you can see. So that's the alternative, I suppose. All right, there we go, lined up. Okay, so the first thing that your C++ program should have is what is known as a preprocessor directive. Okay, so that's, I'll put it as a comment, and I'll go over comments in a second. But first, you need to have a preprocessor directive. There we go. Okay, and what that is a library call. Is that the best way to define that? Basically, no. A preprocessor directive is something for your compiler. So your compiler needs to know how to compile your program, how to convert that high-level language into machine code. And you don't want to have to write the entire, like, if you're doing a basic program, think back to the concept of step-by-steps, right? So all I want to do is a program that prints out a statement to the screen. And to do that is actually very, very complicated, because what needs to happen is your program needs to send a signal to the operating system, which has to tell it like, yo, he wants to print this piece of text to the terminal window. And then the OS is like, okay, I'll do that. But to communicate with the OS and to do those signaling and then to get a confirmation back from the OS so that you could do other things, it's a complicated process. It's not like a one-line of code process. Even though it will be a one line of code in my program, there's a lot of internal workings that are happening there. And those internal workings are also C++ code. And that code was not written by myself. It was written by the people probably who made C++ or some of the developers in general. And so we'll talk about the concept of a library, which is basically using other code to support our code so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. Preprocessor directives are basically telling the compiler like, hey, we're going to use somebody else's code and build on top of that. And in this case, I'm going to be using the stdout library per se to be able to communicate with the OS and send it messages. If I was going to use some math formulas, I could use a math library. If I wanted to do special formatting, there's like the IOMAN IP library. If I wanted to use some complicated data structures and whatnot, there's an algorithms library. So there's all these libraries so that I don't have to reinvent the wheel. Now, because you're learning how to program, not so much for this class, but in like 302, for example, you're learning all these fancy data structures, and all of them are already implemented by other people, but you don't want to use them because you want to learn how to build them. So yes, and we'll talk about that STD thing in a second. So anyways, that's basically what we are going to do, is we are going to make our little first ever Hello World program. So, all right. The way you include, well, I'm using the same word as the word I'm trying to describe. The way you put these libraries in your program is you type in the word include, and then you put the name. In our case, we're going to use the Iostream library, but there are other ones as well, okay? So for now, most of your programs will have that as the first line of code, okay? And again, we call that the Preprocessor Directive. Now, before I go any further, anything that I write here in this file, my first program, and by the way, I can do Control S to save. Anything that I write in this file, I'm using my Mac terminal. You can, that's fine. But anytime that you write a file, anything in that file will be read by the compiler and assumed to be code. So I cannot just have random text here like, this is the start of my program. I can't just have that, because if I try to compile it, it'll think that that's actually C++ code, and the syntax rules or the grammar rules of the language are very, very specific for C++, and they don't just allow you to write random sentences in English, and so that's going to cause an error. So whenever you just want to write a comment or a piece of text that you want it to be ignored by the compiler, you use the comment sort of a shortcut, and that is 2 forward slashes like that. And if you're using an IDE, it'll color code it into this green color code, which is useful because it tells you that that's a comment. So now, any piece of code, it could be an entire program, or it could be just a line of code, or it could be a sentence, it could be whatever. I like cookies in here. Anything like that, you can go ahead and put the 2 forward slashes, and it'll be ignored. However, it's only going to ignore that line. It doesn't matter how big the line is, but it'll ignore it. And when I'm talking about line, I mean text until there's an enter symbol. So like, if you're writing text and it wraps down because you run out of space in the terminal, that's technically the same line. It's just wrapping it down because it doesn't fit. A proper brand new line is you actually hitting the enter symbol, the enter key, and making a brand new line. Okay, so that's like if you were writing an essay. When you actually separate a paragraph, that's more of a new line, not between sentences. So that's the closest comparison with English that I can think of. So anyways, the other way you can write comments if you want to do multi-line. So if you want to have a that's autocomplete because I think tab. Multi-line comments are cool. If you do that, there's 2 ways to do it. You can just put slashes in all of them like this, or better yet, you can use a slash and the asterisk like this to start the multi-line comment. So now I can say this is a proper multi-line comment. And then to finish it, you do the same thing backwards. So you put the asterisk first and then the forward slash. And now it would actually be the text as code. So these are the 2 ways that you can comment code in C++. And this means that anything that's inside of that will be ignored by the compiler. It will just be skipped over. Within here, if I was to try to put comments, there will still be comments because anything is ignored. Be careful though, if you do it this way and somewhere in here you have this, then it's just going to ignore the rest. So you can't have comments within comments in that form. I know you're thinking like, why would you ever do that? But like, suppose that I'm writing some code, and suppose that in here, instead of using this kind of commenting system, because I can use it also for a single line by doing it like this, I could do this. And then I want to comment this out, right? So I'm like, oh, I'm going to comment it out with a multi-line. And I do this. And theoretically speaking, if there was some code here, that actually wouldn't be commented out because the one over here is canceling out the one above here. So that's kind of like a pain. So I'd say avoid using the multi-line comments unless you have to. That way, one very nice and easy way to comment out large pieces of code, like when you're trying to fix something and you want to turn off some code, is by using the multi-line. So I would reserve the multi-line for when you're actually trying to fix code and you want to remove part of it quickly. Obviously, you can also just delete it, but it's better to just temporarily disable it. You know, it's better. So actually, I'll leave all that in there. So anyways, that's your preprocessor directive, and you need to have it in all your programs. I'm gonna go ahead and skip this part and just go with this. Yeah, we'll do this. So I was gonna put using the Iostream STD, but I'll come back to them in a second so I can go over what someone was saying. Okay, the next thing I'm gonna do is in C++, you can write a huge file here and have, in fact, you could have multiple files that run one program, and you'll do that in 202, not in 135. But here's the thing. When you're reading a paper, you always start from the top to the bottom. And that's the same way that a compiler actually reads code. It starts from the top and it goes all the way to the bottom. Okay? However, when code is going to be executed, it doesn't have to be executed from top to bottom, which is different than like Python or something like that. In this case, C++ code does go from top to bottom, but the starting point is not just the top of the program. It's going to be the main function. The main function is where your C++ programs will start. And the first line of the main function is where they'll start, and it expects to finish at the end of the main function. When we learn more about what functions are, you'll see that you can add extra functions, but it'll always still be the starting point to be inside the main function. Okay? If that doesn't make sense for now, that's okay. The way that I create my main function is by writing the keyword int main, and I will explain once I talk about variable types why the int part is there. But it has to be for main always int, and main has to be spelled out just like this. And don't worry too much. I know that I'm saying don't worry a lot because unfortunately there's a lot of things happening here, and each of them is going to take like an entire lecture to go over. So there's a little bit of hand waving. That's one thing I don't like about 135. You have to do a lot of hand waving until you get to those topics. But we'll talk about int will be like an entire lecture per se, probably tomorrow, maybe the second half of today. And then the parentheses part is an entire lecture when we talk about function parameters and so on. So yeah, it's the best. So just bear with me, be patient in that sense. So anyways, int main like that is how you create your yeah, it's bits and pieces. Yeah, it's how you go ahead and you create your program. Okay, and now the first thing that's going to run when you run your program is whatever you have first here. So in this case, we're going to first do just hello world because that's the most typical first program you want to do. And I guess this time you're actually learning how to do this. The way that you send a command to the terminal to print something out, and by terminal I'm talking about this guy here, which by the way, I never moved it to the directory. I just copied it, but I never actually moved myself to the directory, so I can use CD for that. There we go. So that's ready to go. So the way that I actually, I can actually go in here and see text whenever my program is, I have to use cout for that. And cout is the name of the default output device, which is the screen. Okay? And the way that I can call that is, let me write it first and then I can describe it. How about that? Okay, there we go. So now I can actually talk to you about this and explain to you what each of this is. So first of all, let me tell you what this will do. This is as it is now, not quite. If I do this now, it will. Okay, so if I type this line of code just like that, and if I was to run this program, this would print to the terminal hello world. And last time we did it, and I think it just was hello? No, I think it was cancer. I don't know what I did, but it printed something out. But anyway, this would print to the terminal hello world. Let's break this down and see what's happening here. First, you are going to see this std : part. The std : part is because the cout belongs to a library, and that library is going to be part of the Iostream library. However, do not confuse the compiler. If I had my own variables with the same name, you have to put this std part. So first of all, I'm going to tell you how to get rid of that, at least at the CS135 level, and then you will revisit that. Because this, for example, is called a scope resolution operator, but you don't need to know that for CS135. So I'm going to go ahead and edit one more line here of code called using namespace std colon. Okay? What that line of code is going to do is it's going to allow me to remove this stds from here. Because I am using the namespace. Now the namespace means that anything that doesn't have an std colon in front of will kind of have it added automatically per se. So that is hand waving for sure of what's happening. Maybe we'll talk about namespaces at the end of the semester, but as a sort of a law of the land per se, whenever you write a program, you're pretty much going to be guaranteed to have the include Iostream and the using namespace std, so you don't have to write that out. Okay? So we'll just go with that. Don't hate me for having all the hand waving. It's just the unfortunate way that we have to do this. So, yes. Okay? So all your programs include Iostream, using namespace std. I know you probably still don't quite understand what using namespace std does. Just put it in your programs for now. 202 for the most part, or even then CS 202. Yeah. Although I'll try to cover at the end of class. You have to know about objects and classes and namespace for that. However, you know, if you're really curious about it and want to learn it now, you can obviously read it in the book, but you can also check out this link I'm going to post on Twitch. Yeah. Check that out on your own time if you would like, and that'll actually tell you a little bit about namespaces and how they work, and that will give you the, that won't do the hand waving for that. So obviously they might talk about some stuff there that you don't get, so Google those parts as well. But yes, and you can also go on Stack Overflow and ask why using namespace std. And the fact of the matter is, there's a big debate about that, whether you should have this using namespace std or you should just put std colon in front of everything. I think in CSN they make you do std colon in front of everything. It's a big sort of debate that I don't want to jump into, to be honest with you. So yes, we'll go with that. Okay. So, feel bad for hand waving, but such is life. Okay, so let's talk about what this less than sign is called. So this is actually called the insertion operator. So I'll put that as a comment. So this is called the insertion operator, and I always get these mixed, by the way, because there's also the extraction operator, which is the backwards one. We'll get to that when we try to read in information from the user, but now we're just printing out. Okay, what the insertion operator does is it allows a output expression to be sent to a destination. So in this case, you can think of the arrows as inserting this text into the cout. And cout is going to be basically the terminal. So we are saying send hello world to the terminal. That's what this is happening right here. It has the arrows, which is inserting it into cout. Okay? So the arrows try to help you. As a new programmer, a lot of the times I see people flip these backwards because it just seems to make more sense. Like we're sending cout to hello world, but no, don't flip them out. Okay. Now this part is going to be also some hand waving, but again, you're inserting, so you can chain inserts from left to right, and you read C++ like you would read English from left to right. Don't go like Japanese on me or the other languages when you read in different directions. You read from left to right like English. So what that means is you're saying insert to cout hello world. Okay? And after you insert hello world, you want to insert end line, which is what ENDL stands for. So end line like that. What that means is after I finish printing hello world, I'm going to put a line feed after that. Which for now though, how about this? I'm going to not put it out so you can see the difference with and without it. Okay? So we'll just say cout hello world like that. Okay? All right. Yeah. Okay. That's good enough. So now I'm going to do more hand waving and say that you should always put return 0 at the end of your main function. Now, what does this line of code do? And by the way, these little spaces here, C++ is what is known as a white space insensitive program, which means it doesn't care about the spacing, as in, as long as there's one space where there should be, it's okay, but you can have multiple. So like, well, this is okay. In fact, that's okay too. It would just ignore all this space and convert it into a single space. So just like that. Okay? Do we have to skip lines when starting main? No, that's a very good question. So because of what I was just saying, C++ is white space insensitive, which means in theory, and I'm gonna do it right beneath maybe, this whole program could be in a single line of code, as long as the comment doesn't break that line. So if I take rid of that comment, this whole program could be like this. Again, let's get rid of the comments. Hello world and line, remove that. Using this specificity, int main, why is it color coding it like that? Oh, it probably doesn't like this being here like that. Maybe like that. Okay, that worked. I don't know if the other one will compile. But yeah, so you see, this whole program could be written like this. This brings up an entire different debate of how you should make or stylize your code to make it readable. I'll talk about that in a second, but first question. How come all my words are all white and yours are color-coded on the studio? Here's a good thing. Is your program, is the file that you're working on, did you save it first, and did you save it with a .cpp ending? Did you save it like that? Well, wait, hey, don't curse though, because people watch this on YouTube, and you know, this is a Christian Twitch chat or something. I don't know. That's the meme, right? This Christian server. So yeah, don't curse on Twitch chat. But yes, that's probably why. Okay. Anyways, now we probably offended Christian people too. Jeez, it's great. So yeah. Don't get me banned. Actually, I thought I had a profanity filter that's supposed to like censor stuff out, but I guess that's not that big of a bad word. But anyways, just by the way, I don't really care if you curse on Discord or not, but I think the Discord bot will block you from it. Like, it won't kick you out, but it'll just block your words. Test it out. Feel free to test it out. People have in the past. So anyways, but yeah, don't get me banned from Twitch. Otherwise, we'll have to switch to WebEx or YouTube Live, which was really laggy for me. Like, I tried it the first time and then it failed. Anyways, we gotta bring it back. Okay. So, all right. So, okay. So let's talk a little bit about spacing. But before that, let me talk about the semicolon. That's the one thing that I didn't actually talk about. So first, this return 0. When we talk about functions, it'll make more sense. But it's because this is a function and it's a valid returning function. In fact, it's supposed to return an integer, and 0 is that integer. For now, again, just like you have to call int main the exact same way that I put it here, and you have to put a little semicolon at curly bracket at the end of it like this, you also need to put this return 0. So again, for now, until you know any better, because we go over it, the most basic program that you should just like memorize at this point, because you don't understand the why, I suppose, should be like this. Let me go ahead and put it up like that. Okay, that's going to be your template per se. All right, that's your template right there. In fact, I'm going to use a multi-line comment. And by the way, if you guys remind me, I'll post this file on Discord at the end of class. But yeah, you can think of that as your little template. Okay, from there you can start coding. And of course, the place where you will code would be right on this line here. So like blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's where you're going to be coding. Okay, so this is your template. As we progress the class, a lot of these parts will make sense, with the exception of probably the using namespace, because again, that one's kind of specific. By the way, code. Oh, you guys are helping each other. That's fine. But anyways, yeah. So so that's going to be your template, okay? So I don't. Maybe all these comments might confuse you, but this is kind of what we're trying to get to, okay? So from this little template, all we're going to do is add this cout hello world, okay? So let's go ahead and try and run this piece of code. Oh, no. Before, let me tell you the semicolon. I keep forgetting the semicolon. I got to remember that this is like zero experience coding, so I have to really, I have to make sure I cover every tiny detail. So in C++, because it doesn't care about white space, as in like, as I said, I could have the entire code be like this, like all enter lines like that. I could also space it out. So the way that I tell C++ this is where a line ends or a statement ends is with a semicolon. That's the period of the C++ language. Just like you end a thought in English with a period, you end it with a semicolon in C++. In Python, you don't need to use semicolons. That's right. So not all languages are the same. And in Python, you don't use semicolons, but the alternative to that you have to do is you have to space things out correctly there. Otherwise, it complains. And so that's kind of it's a good and bad. On the good side, you don't have to remember to put semicolons. On the bad side, as we talk about nested if statements and things like that, your code has to be tabbed every time that it goes inside, and it gets really messy very fast. So there's pros and cons. Let's come back to the Python thing when we talk about nested stuff, and then you guys can tell me what you think is better. And I don't think there's a right answer either. So, okay. Very anxious to finally get to run this, but okay, I think we're good. Don't forget to save with Control S if you guys are following along. I can keep it with that. But if you're doing it in Nano, you won't see the color coding. You would see it like this. Actually, will you? Let's do Nano hello, my first program. Oh no, you do. Look, I see the color coding. So if you don't see the color coding in the terminal, I don't know. That might be something you have to Google. You don't see it on Studio. Did you name the file .tpp? That's the important part. And yeah, there's so many questions that you guys had to tell me before. Yeah, it's a Linux. And did you name it .tpp? How about this? Try to close the file and open it again, and then maybe that'll fix it. Like close the file, close Visual Code, and then right-click on the file and open it with Visual Code, and then maybe it'll be good. Make sure that it has .cpp at the end. That's super, super important. Because that's what happens is CPP is it's a file extension for C++, and Visual Code recognizes that and color codes it according to that. And make sure you don't forget trivial, not so trivial because you guys are learning things like the little hashtag symbol, pound symbol, whatever you want to call it. Anyways, just keep trying, and I'll just keep going, and then we'll see. Well, you guys can catch up. All right. So as you can see with Nano, you can see the code. I can see it color coded. You guys can't. We'll figure that out. Just keep trying. Keep me updated. But okay, let's compile locally first, and then we'll send it to the server. Okay, to the terminal. So good. Yay! Congrats. All right. What was it though? You gotta tell us what it was. That way other people who like watching the chat on YouTube, they can see, they can know the resolution to the big mystery. Okay, so how you compile is you use G++, and again you put a space, and then you put the name of the file. The file was still named desktop. Oh, well there you go. Cool. All right, so when you compile, this means it's all good. To run it, /a.out, and you can see it says there hello world on the left, right? Right there. However, you can see that it printed it out, and then it went ahead and prompted me again for the next command in the same line. So what if I want this to kind of move down here? That's when I can use a line feed for. Now there's two ways to do line feeds. The easy way is you put a slash and an N inside of your quotes. And by the way, the little quotes signify where your text starts to print and where it ends to print. Those quotes are sort of the beginning and the end. They mark the text that's being printed out. You need to have them there, otherwise it'll get confusing. It'll think it are variables, which we'll talk about when we talk about variables. So yeah, if I go ahead and did I save it? No, I didn't save it. We're gonna save. Let's try to compile it again. And by the way, I can use the up and down arrow keys to go back to my previous commands. it makes it faster to be able to run this. I recommend that you get used to doing that. Just like, you know, tab and arrows are useful. And you can see now that after I added the line feed, it goes ahead and puts it much nicer. So there you go. Okay, let's push the boundary further here. Let's put 2 line feeds instead of 1. I could put another line feed like this. In fact, I'll put it. But now, let's say I want to add a 3rd line feed. I could also do under the \n, but let me show you the other way that you can do it. The other way that you can do it is you can do the insertion operator and then do the endl that I had earlier here. And by the way, that space here, you don't want to have it, but if you have it, it'll compile. So I'll leave it in there intentionally. Endl stands for end line, and it is a line feed. There's more to it than that. Technically, it also flushes the buffer out. Yet again, these are terms that you don't need to know until like 202, the whole flushing part. For now, just know that end line will force the text to come out. If you ever have any problems where things are coming out of order, use end line. And if not, you can do \n. Yeah, make sure you save your code every time you want to run it. Otherwise, it's not going to run the latest code. So like if I was to write a bunch of stuff here, but I don't press save, and I try to compile and run, it'll be okay. The other thing is, if I write some code, like, okay, that's wrong, so let's actually save it this time. So Control S, save, and then I try to go and say G++, I run into a problem, right? However, if I try to run it after that, you see it still runs. That's because it's running the previous iteration of the code that actually was running. So when you compile, it makes a brand new a.app file every single time. But if the compilation fails, it doesn't touch your latest, the a.app that was working last. So if you compile and then run, and the compile fails, your program will still run with the oldest version of the code that was working. So it might confuse you and be like, whoa, why are my changes not making effect? Well, that's because it's not compiling in the first place. Although you should see that, because you can see when it doesn't compile, it gives you an error. So let's actually analyze this error. Okay, 2 very useful things that the compiler will tell you is, first of all, it'll tell you where the error is found. And that's very, very, very important. It gives you the name of the file, and then it tells you the name of the function, which is main, and then it gives you these numbers here. These numbers here are a blessing. These numbers indicate the line number and the character number where your error starts. They're not always 100% accurate because of the way things are, but I'd say they're 99% of the time accurate within 1 line plus or minus. But it's, I mean, in 135, you probably won't run into those situations. So let's see what it says here. It says the error is line 8. So I think at the bottom here, how do I show you that? I guess I gotta move here. I can do that. I can do that. Yeah, there we go. Right. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Okay, so this is the bottom of the code right here. If you look at the bottom right, there's a couple of useful information. Block it with my head. You can see here it says line 9, column 2. That's, as I move up and down here, I'm moving up and down with the arrow keys, it changes. That's the line number that you're at. You can also see the line number in another spot that I'll show you in a second. But what you can see in addition here is the column number. So it's a character number. So you can see that the error was saying 815. So that would be right there, 815. And that actually happens to be the beginning, as I'll go back in a second. So now let me actually bring it back. Okay. I haven't touched my keyboard. As you can see, it's right at the beginning of the error. So that's a really, really useful thing, because now it tells me that the error is there. So I can go ahead and fix it. The other place where you can easily see the line numbers are right on the left side. So right here, these are the line numbers. If you don't see those in your own visual code, Google. But I think if you go somewhere here under like settings, view, appearance, maybe somewhere in there is like show line numbers. If you Google it, I'm telling you, Google is like your salvation. show line numbers in Visual Code, because it's Visual Code. Open the menu bar, choose tools, options, expand. I don't have tools. This is for Visual Studio, that's why. There's a YouTube video, 18 seconds long. Here, let me watch it, because it's kind of useful, and I don't know if people don't have it. Let's see what he's looking at. Hold on a second. He's typing line numbers. Okay, so he just typed line numbers. Okay, so let's see what... I don't see the thingy there. It's in options though. I saw him go to options. Maybe preferences, settings, text editor. There's a lot of useful things here. I guess a useful one is font. If you have a problem with the font size being too small or too big, you can change it here. You can change the number, make it bigger. That's actually a useful thing to know. Search settings, line number. Yeah, here we go. So you type in line numbers there. It says line numbers. Control the display of line numbers on. I'm not going to touch it because I don't want to lose my line numbers, but there you go. That's how you do it. So to get there, I went to File, Preferences, and that got me in there. Okay, and I can close it like that. So it's kind of hard to show you that, but it's there. The way you see the menu is you got to go up here like that, and then as long as you have the window selected, you'll see it. If you had a different window selected, you won't see it. You have to have your window selected, and then you'll see the things, okay? So there you go, Ubuntu 101. So, yes. I like how you guys are wasting your points on the posture checks and everything when I think I have like an attendance extra credit thing where you can save your points for. And yeah, ask questions, guys. Like, legit. Nobody asked this about line numbers, but I showed it because I think it's something that I feel like someone would have. Hopefully they're on by default, though. Yeah, Visual Studio. But like I said, if you have problems, Google. Like I found the solution on Google myself, live, right now, in the live. You know, it wasn't like I just tried to do that. When I say according to a folder, it's not showing in the folder. Are you sure you're saving it in the right folder? Type in ls. Oh, here's another command I didn't show you in Linux, which is very, very useful. If you're saving it via the terminal, one very, very useful command that you should all know is pwd. pwd stands not for password. I don't actually know what it stands for, to be honest with you. But what it does is it shows you the directory where it's located. So try doing that to verify that you're saving it to the folder that you think you're saving it to. And for the rest of you, look at that. See, that question led me to show you a very important Linux command. Usually there's a lab where they show you all these things, but now I got to kind of cover it in. Print working directory. Ah, yeah, that sounds right. That sounds smart. There you go. So PW stands for print working directory. Nice, nice. Well done, guys. I honestly just call it PWD all the time. I never really thought about it. I'm probably going to forget that, not going to lie. But I'll do my best not to. Just like I don't know what LS means. Local space? Local scope? I don't know. But it just shows you, LS will show you the directory of all of the, of all the files in the directory. But I don't know what it actually LS stands for. But Google, I could Google it and find out if I ever needed to. So list, that's not as exciting. I thought it would be like a 2-word thing, but it makes sense. LS for list. Interesting. Okay. So anyways, okay. So we have a little working program now. We added that end line at the end. Let me. Oh, by the way, let me move that here so you have more real estate. And so clear to clean out all the garbage. Up arrow because I'm lazy and I don't want to have to retype that. It compiled just fine. Let's go ahead and generate another error. Let's say we forget the semicolon here. Right there. Let's see what it says. Okay, so again it tells me line 8. Is that line 8? Yeah, it is not line 8 actually this time. That's okay, this is great because this is an example of where the line number isn't matching where the real error is. However, this error is actually very, very correct, because here's the thing. It says error, expected semicolon before return, and it puts a little arrow with the text where the error is. So it's telling me that right here, it was expecting a semicolon. And it's true. I could put the semicolon there, and the code will compile and work just fine. As you can see there. Notice the pause, because I wasn't 100% sure, but now I am. Here's the thing why. C++ is white space insensitive, so it doesn't care if the semicolon is here, 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 or even here, as long as it's somewhere before the next statement. You don't want to do that though. You want to put it as close as to the end of the statement as possible, because you don't want to make your code confusing. If I was to add some code in between those lines, now I can't because I have the semicolon beneath. So you got to be careful about that. So as you can see, technically the error is correct. The compiler doesn't have a problem until it gets to line 8, but really you should be putting it in line 6. So there's sort of an example of where, yes, the compiler is right, the error is on line 8, but really where you want to put it is on line 6. So regardless though, it 100% helped us identify the location of the error or the vicinity of the error so that we can then fix it. So compilers are great. You should always go ahead and read the errors. Now let's go ahead and add a bigger scary error. Let's say we flip that backwards like that, okay? This one's very popular. A lot of people panic and get scared. They're like, oh my gosh, look at this wall of text of errors, like, you know, major panic. They drop the class. They change states, you know, they go live in a different country because they're so scared. No, don't be scared. It's a very easy error to fix. Whenever you see something super big and it says things about, well, look at the top of the program first, top of the error. It says operator and then // Yeah. You don't want to do that. You don't want to panic. You want to look at the top of the error, and that usually gives you a hint, and ignore the rest of the panic of the error. It actually tells me here the line number where it is, and then hopefully then you see that the less than sign is backwards, and then you're like, oh, okay, that's the error. If you know what this keyword means, because yet again this is 202 material when you do operator overloading, this is how you overload an operator, and that's the extraction operator in this case, and it's just telling you that it doesn't work for these data types. The error is actually correct, and it makes more sense once you know that stuff. For now though, autofill is doing weird things. That always look at the top of the code, and it usually gives you a location, and even if the error doesn't make sense, you can just go to that location, stare at that code, and hopefully notice the error, okay? So that's one thing that you can do. Another thing that you can do is, for example, suppose that you forget the quote there. Now it's going to think it's a variable, okay? So this time, clear it out. Now it's giving me a lot of errors. Even though it's just one error in reality, it chains the errors together. So also don't panic if you compile your program and you get like 50 different errors. It might just be one tiny line of code that's wrong. I've seen this happen before. If you're writing some super big piece of code, but at the top you have an error, it waterfalls into more errors. Like you're missing a curly bracket or something, and then you get something like this. Don't start from the bottom. Start from the top, because that's going to be where the real error probably is. So look here, and it says the error is actually line 6. And that's where it is. As you can see, that's where the hello world is. Even though all of these are nice enough to indicate, that's because we don't have a lot of code. But if we did, then you would see that. I can probably, it's okay. We'll run into errors later in the class. What does the curly bracket do? Good question. So when we talk about functions, it'll make more sense. But what they do is they indicate the beginning of a function and the end of the function. In this case, what you should know is that your main function should start with a curly bracket and should end with a curly bracket. Once we talk about if statements and while loops, they also use curly brackets to signify beginning and end. So in general, the technical term of that is they indicate a certain scope. But don't worry about the word scope yet. We'll talk about it later. For now, just know that they start and close a function. So most errors do say stuff, though. I wouldn't call them that. However, here's the thing. Let's see what the error actually said. Stray / in program. That is confusing. The reason why is because it's looking at this slash. But here's again the magical words. If you don't understand an error, yes, you can ask me. But before you do, 99% of the time, in fact, for 135, I'd say 100% of the time, these are errors that somebody else has faced. And they're on Google, probably on the very famous website Stack Overflow. So what I want you to do is I want you to copy that error. Don't Control-C because it doesn't work in the terminal. Then go ahead and crack open the Google, as you can see, google.com. Paste it. I have no idea what's going to happen here. Hopefully we don't get something explicit. And here we already have some. Okay, this is probably the good answer. I'm surprised it's not Stack Overflow there. I guess it's that basic of an error. And let's see what they say. Again, this is not scripted per se, so I have no idea. So here we got somebody using C. Printf is the same way to do C out in C. And if I was to guess, they're using some weird quotation. Yeah, the Unicode quotation marks, blah, blah, blah. So what's happening is, it's because they didn't use the right quotations, they use some weird form of quotation. It's ignoring it, and it's not having the correct form of quotation, which is very similar to what we're having. And the fact that they have the word quotation here would hopefully remind you that you have a problem. And as you can see here, I'm going to post this on Twitch, so you can read it later. All copyright to Mr. Who did this? Mr. David Forrester, I guess, or Sahid. I don't know. Whoever created these things. Elijah Kagan. So yeah, as you can see, anytime you have a problem, you can Google it and you can find hints at the very least, if not solutions to your problem. Always. It's Firefox, not Google Chrome. Yeah, I got both. So anyways, let's try that with a different error. Let's try that with the missing. I mean, some of these are so basic that people are probably scared of Googling them because they don't want to be made fun of. But don't be scared. Let's try the one with the semicolon. Okay, so let's go ahead and copy that. Error expected. Let's throw it in on Google. In this case, I'm just gonna post it here because I have Auto Google on. And here we got a bunch of stuff. Here we got this one's probably right, this one's probably right, and this one's probably right. All right, so let's see what they say. They said, guys, I'm new to C. Not surprised. And I got an error. I really don't know how to solve this error. The answer. There is nothing wrong with the code. Do the following. Delete. Oh, did they have some problem in the code? What did they have? You forgot to save your code. Possibly. Yeah, I guess that's one error. Okay, so that's kind of useless. Let's look at the next guy. My crystal ball tells me you're missing a semicolon before a return. There you go. There it is. And then they put a little arrow saying you forgot semicolon. So I guess they did. Where do they forget it? Let's see. Right here. Inside. In here. I don't know why. Oh, is this a do-while loop? It is a do-while loop. So no, they don't need it there then. Where would they need it? Oh, that's right. Do-while loops do need it after the while part. So we'll talk about do-while loops when we do, but you do need to have a semicolon there. And there you go. That would have told you. So as you can see, it's kind of tricky with such a basic error, you know. Here. I think this one's actually much better. Let's see. How to fix colon before return. To fix this error, check the statement which is written before the statement in which the compiler throws the error. That's very good. There you go. That tells you exactly what I said. So as you can see, you have found a solution in Google. I know you're like, why are you showing me how to Google? There's a lot of people, you'd be surprised, that don't know how to Google. At least I was surprised. So anyways, moral of the story is, if you send me an error, that's probably what I'm going to do. So you might as well do it yourself as well. Obviously, when I see things, I might see them with a different eye because I kind of pick things up. But get used to that, because I try to be available 24/7, and everybody else is. But at the end of the day, you want to be able to have a independence per se, as in you be able to rewrite your own code and debug it yourself. And even now, it's a good idea to start picking up this habit. Now, be careful about this though. There is a dark side to this. You don't want to just plagiarize the answers there. If you can't solve something in your assignment, don't just copy and paste what they do. Like I'm trying to read I'm trying to read a certain line from code or from a text file, blah, blah, blah. And you go there and somebody's like, try this line of code, it works. Be careful not to cross that line into like getting help into solving a problem or how to do something versus just like stealing a solution online, all right? That's the only warning I have about that. The joke goes like this. Why pay someone $100,000 to go on Stack Overflow and copy and paste code? And the answer is because the $100,000 is not for the guy to go and steal and copy and paste code, but for him to know which code he needs to copy and paste. So you got to learn that second part. If you want to get a job in programming, yes, even in the workplace, you're going to be Googling how to do things, but you're going to make the big bucks, not because you know how to Google, but because you know what to Google and how to get the right answer from the Google, okay? For the CS account, I'm going to get it in an hour. Check with Kawa. I don't know if he's around still. If not, send him a message on Discord. So, yeah, hit him up. That was like, it's Kawa something like that. I don't know what his number is, but add him on Discord. Like, at him, as in the at symbol, not add as in friends. Don't spam him with a friend request. You know, he knows you guys like him, so you don't need to friend him. Okay, I know we're going slow, but you know, I want to make sure we're all getting this. So, okay, enough of the error handling per se. Let's say that we finally got a working program, and we do, and it runs. Okay, let's say that we're gonna do the Constitution, right? Yeah, or the Declaration of Independence. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me go ahead and Google, surprise, surprise, Declaration of Independence. Archives.gov, that seems right. Yeah, I guess this is right. Let me see the ending of the ending of it, because oh, this is like an annotated version of that. Hold on, let me find a different one. There we go. Okay, it's very big. So we are gonna go ahead and just get the first sentence. Are we allowed to copy paste all the text for the assignment? Yeah, that's fine. I think we should all read the Constitution at least once in our lives, maybe more than once. However, that's not part of the class. I don't want you guys to have to read it and copy it. This is not an exercise in that. You can copy and paste it. However, you will have to format it a little bit, as I will in a second here. Okay, so I went ahead and copied and pasted it. So let's just paste it first and then organize it. As you can see, it's just one big massive line of code. I'm missing the first letter because it was a picture, a big W. So here we go. Yes, this could work. If I do C out here, put a quote there, go all the way to the end, which is 419 characters, and then put a semicolon. In theory, this should work. However, it's just a blob of text. Not cool. Not the mission. All right? The mission is you want to separate it in a nice way so that it doesn't wrap like this and chop up the words in the middle. To do that, we're going to use a KNR style, which means that it shouldn't go past 74 characters. So right there, we're going to stop the first one, and then we're going to do the next one. If you want to do multiple cout statements, you can just go ahead and put a semicolon at the end of that one, and then start another line and put your cout, I get them flipped, so I got to make sure I say the right one, insertion operator, and then put your string. Let's go ahead and put that. So that's what you're going to have to do in the assignment. I think I gave it to you like this flipped already, but you're going to have to add all the cout parts to it. It should take you like a few seconds. I think the biggest part of it is you getting your hands wet with C++. That's the tricky part. Let's see what we got. That's not very cash money of you. What? Oh, that's an error. We want to put the semicolon outside. Let's leave it in there. Let's run into that error. How about that? Frankly, it's a good thing to, you know how they say, why do we make mistakes, or why do we fall, so we can learn to get back up. That very much applies in programming. You want to make mistakes now while you're at school, so that if you're working somewhere, you don't make a spaceship crash because you mixed up the math in the program, which is a real thing that happened to a Mars lander. They switched the units from imperial to metric in one of the functions and miscalculated some the altitude that the parachutes had to open at, so they didn't open in time, and the thing slammed to the ground and exploded, and millions of dollars were lost. Very sad, very sad. But hey, they learned their lesson. Debug the code. By the way, there's a new launch coming up to a Mars rover in July, I think. So yeah. Oh, it's a meme. Okay. All right. So we got 2 errors in here that I see. That's okay. I want to feel the power of the error. Okay, so we run into 2 errors. Expected semicolon before cout in line 11. As you can see here, line 11. It's actually line 10 because it was expecting it here, which means that the error is up here because the semicolon was inside of the string. This is called a string, where it's supposed to be outside. And then the second error, I can, of course, if I fix one error, very popular thing people do is they just rerun it. That's okay. It might clean up the other errors. In this case, it didn't. Line 16, again, same problem. We don't have a semicolon. Okay? So just don't be scared. It's okay to have errors. It's good. The more errors you have, the more familiar you get to them, and the easier you know what the real problem is. You want to have the errors because you want to start to kind of get used to recognizing the language in the errors and what they mean. Okay? Is it mistake behind political? What? I don't know. The NASA thing was not political. If anything, the only political thing in this class is that Trump assignment when we get to that. So we'll see how that goes. But I made a non-Trump version as well. So then that way we don't have a problem. But anyways. Okay. So now this is all good to go. Compile and run it. I think we just did. I just did that by reflex. Okay. So now we still need to... you can see that it didn't do anything, actually. It literally just kept the same thing. Okay. Why? Where's that dissolve keyword? Here. Well, because we need to add the line feeds between them. So let's go ahead and add the line feeds like this. Maybe for sakes of difference, maybe from here, we can go ahead and put a line feed like that. And like that. And then maybe you want to switch back and forth. Please don't do that. Stick to one or the other. Frankly, use the end line. I could also do something here. Let me try to show you the other way. I could also do that in its own line. I could just see out end line like this. That's perfectly fine as well. We'll do the same thing. So I'll do that as well. So you have different variations. Okay, now this should be good to go. Yay! That actually looks kind of cool. It like slides down like that. All right. So there you go. That's pretty much what we have to do for the assignment. Just make it look cool and pretty like that. I think I made it like very pretty. For the We the People assignment, do you want all the same formatting, including? Yes, I do. Yes, because I want you to practice spacing things out in a cool way. As an example, Dolly for that assignment is making them do a business card, and then you space it out. So yes, make it spaced out because I want you to practice in spacing and moving things around. If you use both, it's okay. It'll do what it did up here with the hello world part. It'll just add an extra line feed. But then you have extra spacing. It'll be like double space per se. It's not forward n. It's \n. So it's not that. It's that. And it's very important that you don't get them flipped. And yes, that will do the same thing as a line feed. So which means an enter. It will add an enter here. So like, as you can see, it enters. So like it puts it at the next line. And it's called a line feed. New line as well. But line feed character is the official term. Line feed character. But if you call it new line character, no one's going to yell at you or anything like that. But yes, you can double space by mix and matching. In fact, a little aside, this is slower than the line feed, because this is flushing. And yeah, in theory, the other one's faster. However, it's possible that if you don't use the end line and you just use this guy here, it's possible things may print out of order. So if you run into that situation, go with this guy. So I don't think at the CS135 level you run into that. In 202 you do though. Especially when you're looping a lot. You should. I want you to practice every part of coding, including documentation. So you want to comment. So how do you comment? You pick that as you go, but you want to in that assignment, you want to look at the rubric. I think it says here you want to say like my program and some description here that you have to put, and then after your inside of your main here, write a comment saying I am using like cout statements to print out constitution, something like that. And I think that's pretty much good for the first assignment. I just want you to practice the comment symbols. I want you to practice using these guys. And as I said, with programming, the most important thing you can do to learn is practice, other than learning, of course. So I know it's redundant, but I do want you to put in those 2 or 3 comments in there to get some practice in putting comments and understand how they work. The other important thing that you have to know is how to do the formatting. Notice that I'm putting spaces here, okay? So here's the basic concept of formatting. We haven't learned if statements yet, and we haven't learned anything else. So the only thing you should know at this point is that this space is, we can count them. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Really 4? 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. It can be anywhere from 3 to 5. What I did to do that is I press the tab key. Yeah, comment the whole process, yes. Just comment, don't, look, let's put it this way. You cannot write too many comments, but you can write too few comments. So if you want to be safe and not lose points with the TA, just write as many comments as possible. I could probably look up somewhere on my computer. No, I can't find it now. But I could look up a really old CS135 assignment when I took the class, and you literally see that it's more comments than code, because you just have to get used to documenting your code. It's a running joke on the internet that programmers don't document their code, and it's true. A lot of the times people are lazy; they don't document code because it's extra work for nothing. Like, it's just text. It doesn't change the output of the program. It's supposed to help you remember the next morning when you try to wake up and look at your code to know what your code does. Of course, this is so trivial, it doesn't matter. But you want to pick up the habits now so that when you write complicated code, you actually know what's happening. And so that's why we actually deduct points if you don't comment, because we want to instill that good discipline on coding, So anyways, for now, I want you to know that you should press tab in every one of your statements here, and they should not be too wide. If you're looking at this in the terminal and it cuts off the text and it wraps around, you've gone too wide. You can use the column. In fact, I probably have gone too wide on this line right here. But so let's go ahead and switch that over to here to save a little bit of space. Yeah, there we go. But you want to keep it under, I think, 74 or 80 characters long. That's KNR style. Otherwise, if I was to look at this, other useful command, I don't know if I showed you, is the cat command. Cat command makes you go meow. No, what it actually does is it shows your text in the terminal. In this case, it didn't wrap around. But if my terminal was smaller, you would see it wraps around and it looks just horrifying. Like, ew. You don't want that, right? Yeah. Obviously, you could just make the terminal super wide, but the TA will have a headache because he might not have a super wide computer. So you keep it under 80 characters so that he doesn't have, he doesn't hate you trying to read this code versus this. Okay? So, yeah. All right. So cat command, useful because it prints things out to the screen of a file. So if I want to show what the contents of the file are, I can do that. The other useful command is more. More does the same thing, but it only shows the first few lines of code, and then it even says here more 72. You press space to show the next few lines of code, and then next again. That's useful for very big files. Otherwise, as you can see with cat, like it just printed everything out, but I didn't have to scroll back up. If it was a super big file, I would be spending like an hour scrolling. More shows it to be more like on pieces. There's also a head. which just shows me the first few lines of the program, and tail, which show me the last few lines of the program. You can also have an argument there to show a different amount. That's all I'll say about those. You can check them out later. Yeah, so name, entry, yeah, that's all you want to put that in. Yeah, look at the syllabus. There's an entire section of how things are graded, including that header stuff. So definitely check that out. I wish we had time to go over that stuff, but just read it on your own time. Or ask questions on Discord after you read it. Okay. It's like I get so anxious because I want to progress, but you know, I have to show you everything. So, okay. So now we are going to go ahead and test it on Sally. Let's test it on Sally and make sure that it works before submitting it, okay? So we're going to copy it to Sally using the SCP command, which I showed you last time. Now you'll see again. So we're going to do SCP, put the name of the file we're copying, and then go ahead and put your login for Sally. Okay, colon, and then the location. In this case, we're just going to put it in our home directory, so just put a dot. However, actually, I'm not going to put it down. I'm going to put a CS135, my first program, because I want to change the name of the file when I send it over. Okay? All right. Press enter. It's going to ask you for your password. You can't see your password when you type it, so just have faith. And then press enter, and then it'll actually give you an upload thing, and it says it finished. Great. Now let's actually connect to Sally and check it out. All right, again, I gotta hide my IP address because I forgot to add the thing to hide it. I'll actually do that while I'm there. I made a typo, that's why. It's just frozen. .cs. Sally, okay. Clear. All right, ls, let's see what's in Sally. First of all, let's do cat on file. That's that one file that we copied in the day, so let's just get rid of that garbage. Cool. All right, so now we got that. Let's go ahead and make a folder for it called test135. Test135. Cool. So now let's go ahead and move the file there. So move CS135. As you can see, the file is there. Into test 135. Put a dot so it copies it with the same name. As you see, it has been moved. Now we can go ahead and move into that directory. If I'm going a little fast, you can rewind later. We'll practice the Linux commands. There we go. Okay, so now we're ready to test it. So same thing. G++, CS135, press tab, press enter. Oh, damn it, I accidentally put a little slash there. It compiled, that's a good sign. We run it, and it works fine, yay. But suppose that you expected there to be an exclamation point at the end of the thing. So you're like, oh snap. What you can do is you can edit it back, send it over again, test it again. Or if it's something super quick and you can just test it quickly here, you can use nano. And as you can see, it's color coded still. And go in here and put your exclamation point. Okay, and then Control X, Y, enter, and it has been saved. Okay, so now I can run it again. G++ CS135, /A that out, and there you go. It has the exclamation point. So I'm like, okay, I'm happy. It works as it should. I'm ready to turn it in. Let's send it back to us now. So I actually don't need to be in Sally anymore, so I can log out by pressing log out. It says close, you can confirm. Now I'm back in my desktop here, or in my folder, and now I can do the SCP command backwards to copy it back to my computer from Sally. I put the login, I put the colon. Now I gotta remember where the file is. Dang, I hope I remember that actually. I think it just named the same thing. I think TS135 / CS135, my first program. .cpp, I think. Oh, and then after that, what you want to copy it over. So I'll just copy it with the same name with a period. We'll find out if it's the right file. Yeah, copy it over. So I got it right. If I had it wrong, it would give me an error. Here, let's go ahead and do that. Say that I do that. Wrong file name, just so you can see the error. It says like file not found or something. Oh, well, if you get the password right. no such file or directory. See? So that would be if you made an error in the name or the directory path. If you don't want to run into problems, you can just use it. The reason why it's good to change file names is because when you copy it back, you make sure you don't overwrite the file you have locally. And always make sure you have backups of your assignments, because in general, that's a very useful thing to have. But just, it's a possibility of overwriting it. And if you copy the wrong file, now you've lost everything. And yeah, you don't want that. There's a lot of chat on Discord. Is there anything for the class? I never actually considered looking. Nothing for the class, I think, right now. Yeah, that cuss words worked. Yay. Okay. All right. So, anyways, let's go ahead and make sure that it actually copied the right file. So let's try to run in our local machine the CS135 thing. A that out. Or say that out. I guess I'll just type it manually. That's laziness right there. As you can see, there's the exclamation point. So we actually got the updated file from Sally back. Now that we confirmed that, we can go ahead and send this over to Canvas. So I would go in here and, you know, I go into Canvas here, the Canvas. I would log in. I'm not going to log in at this point. Yeah. You upload it like that. And then bam, you submit the assignment. And after you submit it, download it, run it again. That way you can make sure you submitted the right assignment. Okay? There you go. You should now be able to do assignment 1, which is the same thing as I did here, but for the US Constitution. Yay! Any questions, guys? How many people do we have watching, by the way? I have no idea. $21 viewers. All right. So now we can move on to the second part. Since we have an hour left, might as well go ahead and behind. I can sort of get this to this point until Sally. Yeah, that's okay. And like I said, if you got a Mac, you could run this and test it on your Mac. You should have no issues between Mac and Ubuntu for the first assignments. I still get the thing figured out with Sally though. As a reminder, in Windows, you have that Ubuntu thing that you can do, which is this one. In this case, I have a C++ file. What is in that file? Oh, a Hello World program. Convenient. I probably did that a test to make sure everything was working. There you go. Is Nano installed? Yeah, it's installed. And they even color coded there. So if you haven't figured out the color coding thing, something's definitely wrong. So, yep, that's that. All right, let's take a second break here. So next we're going to be talking about variables. So like to be able to do math and a couple of things. So I did eat some food, yes. Although my stomach hurts, but yeah. Okay, so let's not switch to the tablet because I can type faster here. I'm gonna go over a couple of terms. Let's do 610. I can remember that. .txt. If you remind me, I can try to send you those files. Okay, so now we have gedit. I don't drink at all. I've never drunk. I don't even drink coffee, by the way. And it's not religious or anything. I just don't like the smell of coffee. I actually got, people get shocked, like, how did you go to school without coffee? I'm like, I don't know, I just did. Yeah. So, okay, let's talk about a couple of terminology. So, the next kind of thing we're going to learn is how to do basic math operations by understanding what variables are. And then from there, we're going to be able to read in input into those variables and so on. So the first thing that I want you to know is what an identifier is. Okay? An identifier is going to be a name associated with a function or data object used to refer to that function or data object. Okay? In reality, what identifiers are for naming things. We're going to be using variables, and you can think of variables in the form of math, like algebra. And we are going to store information into those variables. And to have a variable, we need to have a naming convention on how to call our variables, right? And so C++ has a very strict naming convention on how we can call those variables, and that's what an identifier is. Anything with a name in C++ has to be anything in C++ has to have a name, and that name is an identifier. Okay, and there's a couple of rules for that, for creating what are called legal identifiers. Okay, and so if I want, basically these are how you name variables. You can't just call a variable anything you want in C++. In math, in algebra, this is chapter 2. Yes, in math or algebra, if I want to do like y equals mx plus b, you know, y is a variable, m is a variable, x is a variable, and b is a variable. Okay, there can also be constants like pi r squared, you know, pi r squared, right? That means the area of a circle. In this case, because I don't have this pi symbol, I can represent it using the keyword pi, right? So I can, in math, I don't have to have single letter variables. Otherwise, I would run out after like X amount of symbols, right? Like 26 or whatever. You want to be able to have more than 26 variables in your program, so you can use multi-letter variable names. But there has to be specific naming conventions for them, okay? So that's what we're just about to go over. So the first thing is that, so I guess we'll call this the rules for identifiers, which more realistically is the convention of how you name your variables, okay, in C++. I'll write that. Convention on how you name variables in C++. The first thing is, the first character, or first letter per se, character is better because it doesn't have to be a letter. The first character must, put that in emphasis, must be a letter, okay? And that is A through Z or A through Z lowercase. Or the one other exception is an underscore, okay? That would be the key next to the 0 by holding shift. Not this one, but this one, okay? So you can have an underscore or A through Z. However, don't use underscores in your naming conventions because those are usually reserved for special meanings and are used in some libraries and other things. And so you may run into problems where, like, okay, when you declare a variable in C++, just like in math, if I decide that y represents like the y-axis, the y-axis in a graph, and then later on I say that y represents like the number of cookies I have or something, you can't do that. Y can only represent one thing at a time. Between different math formulas, you can do whatever you want. But in the same math formula, one variable can only represent one thing. You can't just magically say that pi r squared, pi is the magical number, the constant, and r is radius. I can't just out of nowhere switch r to represent like the diameter or something. You can't do that. You have to use a different variable for that. You can use d, right? Same in C++. You have to, once you declare a variable with a specific name, you have lost the ability to use that for something else. It's stuck with that. Now you can reuse the variable for other things. You can override it, but it's been declared once and it can only be declared once, okay? And because of that, if another program is already using a variable name, you would have a conflict. And so they reserve variable names that have an underscore for like library stuff. So even though you should know that you can start a variable name with an underscore, do not do it until you know any better. And that means not in 135. Don't do it. Don't do it. You're going to run some nasty problem and then it's going to be a headache. You sometimes run into problems with just using A through Z sometimes. So just avoid it, okay? But know that it is possible. Next, any remaining character, and you can make your variables as long as you want, actually. I don't think there's character limit. So you can make like a nasty, massive size variable, which is painful to read. Imagine trying to read y equals mx plus b, where like each variable here is like 20 letters. It would be like blah equals blah, and then blah, which is the x, plus blah. Like why? Just why? I ask the question, why would you do this when you can do this? that brings up to another point. Make your variables, and this kind of segues from math because I question some math people on why they choose the variable names they choose. Y equals mx plus b makes sense because we've been ingrained into our head y and the x-axis, m being slope, and then b being the y-intercept. But some variable names are questionable. So in C++, we like to choose, and you should choose, meaningful names. If a variable is, if you're writing pi r squared, you don't have to do r. You can do radius. You can rewrite this as pi times radius, if I spell radius correctly, squared, like that. I say that's a very better naming convention for your radius, is to call it just radius. It's not too long where it's painful to write every single time, and it's very meaningful. You know, I wouldn't call it like my cool circles. Well, you can't use the apostrophe radius. I wouldn't call it that. That's painful. Middle ground, radius. Short, clean, to the point. Which brings me to the point that remaining characters, if any, because you could have single letter variable names, must be, here, I'll just copy the same thing. Must be letters A through Z, underscores, or you can also have digits in this case, 0 to 9. So the difference being that between the first letter, or the first character of a variable name or an identifier and the rest of them is you can have numbers afterwards. So potato1 is a valid variable name. Radius 0 is a valid variable name. My var is a valid name. My var is a valid name as well. Notice something though. In C++, or better saying, C++ is case sensitive. This means that upper and lowercase letters are different. Okay? So I can have, although I don't think you should, I can have two variables that are identical, but one of them has a letter that is uppercase and the other one is lowercase. These two variables are independent of each other. They look the same, but they're not, because this one has the lower m and this one has the uppercase m. Don't do this though. That's very, very confusing. If you're using two variables that are called my var and they're almost identical with the exception of that, that's going to give you a headache, and it's going to give the grader a headache, and in general, it's just a bad programming practice. If you must do something like that, number them like that. And you can go as high as you want, because you can have digits after the first letter. What you cannot do is you can't do this. You can't have a digit as the first letter. Don't ask me why. The big brains that made C++ decided it to be that way. There's probably a legit reason in the parsing of the language. Like, you gotta take compilers and ask this to Peterson in compilers class when you get there in 4 years or something. Ask him that question and then let me know what he says. He probably knows, or he should. So anyways, at least for Java he should, which I assume is the same reason why C++ doesn't do it. So anyways. Yeah, those are the naming conventions. You can have letters, numbers, or underscores in any spot, with the exception of the first spot. You cannot have a number. And because they're they're case sensitive. C++ is a white space insensitive language. That's why I got it confused. But C++ is a case sensitive language. So be careful about those terminologies. Don't get it mixed in tests and things like that. But yeah, so that means that if you have a variable r and a variable r, they're absolutely different. But be careful. This is strictly a sort of a style thing. Use meaningful variable names, and don't do something where the variables can be confused in the names. Okay, try to make them as different. Now, when you look at the again, I'm coming back to this because it's the last one I did. When you look at the Trump assignment, the tweet assignment, let's call it the Twitter assignment because that's what it really is, a Twitter assignment. When you're data mining Twitter. And so in the Twitter assignment, I actually named, well, you don't see this, but in my solution, you see it. If you were to see my solution, which you won't, I guess. Maybe I'll show it after you turn the assignment. I named a variable tweets like this, and then another one tweet. That's questionable. I regret maybe doing that. I'm telling you because it's not good practice. So yeah, even I do something like that sometimes. You know, it's okay. Try to avoid it though. Like, I've gone through the steps that you're going through now, so we have to be super strict with you guys. Okay, the one other case is there are certain what are called reserved words. These are special words that you cannot use as variable names. An example of that is probably main, actually. Or better yet, which ones have we seen so far? Technically, I don't know if main is officially a reserved word. No, see, that's the thing. I don't think. See, here's the thing. Cout and cout is not reserved because what cout is part of the Iostream library, and when you use Iostream, you don't want to overwrite it. Int is a good one. Yes, int is a good one. Yes. Thank you. That's a good one. Yes, all the data types are actually. I have a list of them actually here, yeah. So Iostream library contains cout, and you can't redeclare it if you use the Iostream library and you use the using namespace std part. If you don't, I could declare a variable called cout. In fact, I'll show you this at some point. I made my own version of cout, so I don't have to use the Iostream library. I use printf for that, and you can definitely do that. It's more of a 202 subject kind of thing though, because you got to overload operators. But yeah, it's not reserved. Reserved ones are like super special words, and the data types are there. So the one that you have seen indeed is int. Int is a reserved word because int was used in our program when we said int main, and int represents a data type. And we will go over that next class. But for now, know that that is a reserved word. A list of reserved words. I wonder if this will work. Yeah, that worked. Are these? These are a couple. These are not all of them. In fact, let me try and get the rest of them in there. I believe the book has a list of them as well. You can also Google them. Like Google C++ reserved words and you'll find a list. Like reserved word list. Literally Google that and I guarantee you will find it. And frankly, how we'll deal with these are, it's not like you have to memorize them, although they should be relatively obvious once we learn the subjects. But as we learn all of these things and what they do, for example, as we learn what an if statement is, then you'll find out why it's a reserved word. So for now, the only one that from here makes a little bit of sense is going to be the int, because you've seen that used. But even then, you haven't really seen that. Oh, and namespace. Namespace is also reserved. I think those are the only ones that you have seen at this. Maybe include. Include should be in here. It's not, but I think it's a reserved word actually. So yeah. The way we'll handle this is, as we go over the class and we talk about a lot of these different features, I will go ahead and point out the reserved words. Okay? Yes, friend is a reserved word because there's something called friend functions that you learn in 202. So then, yes, not all this list will cover in this class. Some of it will go into 202. Using is a reserved word. You've seen that one. So using and namespace are both reserved words. So, yes. Okay. That brings us into data types. However, I think that I'll cover that next time because I don't want to jump in and then end it there. Data types is going to be basically the different type of variables that you can declare, such as numbers, text, and so on. So next class we'll cover data types and we'll cover some input stuff, and then you should and then do some arithmetic operators, and hopefully by the end of the next class you will be able to do the second assignment. So I think that's where we will end it. Does anybody have any questions, or you want me to go over any of the Sally stuff if you guys are still having issues with that, or visual code or anything? We got 10 minutes, otherwise we'll just call it a day. We will go over assignment 2 tomorrow for sure, because I'm pretty sure we'll finish all the arithmetic stuff. We won't go over assignment 3 probably because I don't think we'll get to if statements. If we do, then we will. If not, we'll go over that on Thursday. Because today is, what day is it? What day is today? It's Wednesday, right? Yeah, so we'll go over that on Friday. So it's possible that assignment 3 we'll make it do like on Tuesday or something, so you get a little extra days. You should be able to do all, the first 3 assignments are super short though. You should have no, I mean, I saw people submitting them already. Once you learn the material, it should be relatively simple. How do we run our code on Sally again? Okay, so when you are on Sally, so let me connect to Sally again. Not G++. Actually, I should just be able to press the up arrow key. I gotta go in there and change the settings to not show my IP address. It's a little setting. I might actually do it in a second. When I finish class, I won't log off. So anyways, once you're on Sally, how about the longer assignments? Will they take longer time? Oh yes. Like literally once you get to, I think, assignment 5, it's gonna take you hours. Hours. Yes, hours. And they're not even hard for people who are in 202 and 302. But they're hard now for you. And that's okay, because you learn. But when you get to 202 or 302, you'll be like, oh wow, I wish I had that. It's like in math, when you first learn math, it's really hard. But then like, if now I ask you like basic algebra or even fractions, it's like easy, right? But back then it was really hard. That's the same thing with coding, right now it's really hard and stuff, but as you go on, it's like, oh wow, it's easy. So, but yes, they will get hard. And it's just because it's just the nature of the beast. It will be posted. So like within half an hour of me ending the lecture, I upload it. And yesterday, I set it to be released at 11, but I don't think it even got done at 11. I think it got posted like around midnight or 1 a.m. So just around then, I guess. However long it takes. Just check in the morning, I guess. It'll be there. If not, in the meantime, you can watch it on Twitch. Like immediately after I finish it, it's available on Twitch. So you can watch it there in the meantime. Do we have to take a quiz? You want to take the quiz on the syllabus stuff, on academic misconduct. Make sure you get those done. And the syllabus one is going to ask you to do the lockdown browser with the webcam and everything. That's exactly how you'll take the midterm and final. So it's a test for that. So, yes. Yes, thank you for posting my YouTube channel. That's the link. If not on Canvas, on the references tab, there's one that says live stream video lectures. Click on there, and there's a link to Twitch and YouTube. Also on Twitch down here, there should be a link to my YouTube as well. And then there's a playlist called CS135. That's the one where things get uploaded to. So you can either subscribe, well you should anyways, just like and subscribe. You should subscribe, and then you can get notifications when I upload new videos, or just check there in the mornings. But yes. Other things? Oh, people were talking about it. Once you're here, I'm not sure what you're having issues with. You gotta be more descriptive, but like once you're on Sally, it's just the same thing. G++, program file, you compile it, and then you run it. And then you make sure that it does what it should. In this case, it prints things out, then you're good. Harry, I did see that you joined last time and you didn't, and then you quit. So here's the thing. After you join, you have to go on the general... Here. Can I open Discord? No, I think there's... Because it got like a streamer mode, so it hides it. But when you join the Discord, go to the general chat tab and type in !rank student. If you look where the Discord invite link is, if you read that, at the bottom it says what you got to type in, which is that. And it'll assign to you the student role. And then you'll be able to see all of the CS135 sections. So do that now. Let me go ahead and go on Canvas and check what's up. Let me switch over to that. Okay, so I can use the computer better. So UNLV Canvas. Actually, I can just check on Discord to see what's up with the invite. No active invites. Oh, snap. Yeah, something is up. I'm going to regenerate them and post another setting. I guess they must have expired. Edit invite link. Never expire. Maximum number is 100 is the most I can give you, I guess. Generate a new link. Hidden. Use copy button. Copied. Okay, I copied it. So if you go here, let me. I think this will work. Yes. Okay. So this is Canvas. If you go in here, a couple of important things is the notes, of course. This one right here, video lecture live stream uploads. If you click there, there's my link to a YouTube channel, Twitch channel, and I went ahead and posted the link to the first lecture in there, like the actual video. If you click on that, it'll actually take you to the YouTube channel. And then over here, oh, this is weird, right here, it'll show the rest of the videos if they've been uploaded, and they'll go in the order. So that's where you'll see it. So that's how you get the videos. Now, I'm not gonna post all the videos directly there because it's just I would forget. But if you click there, you'll be able to see it. And then the Discord link is here. And by the way, the TA's information is there, including his Discord name. So this is what you will need to do. What? Come on. Oh, it's because of the. Hold on. This is painful to do. It's because of the Zoom feature. Here, I got an idea. There we go. This link doesn't work anymore, so don't even try, I guess. This is what you need to type in, like this, in general chat, okay? So what I'm going to do now in a second here is I'm going to go in here and edit this page, and it'll update instantly, and with the new Discord link. Okay, hit save. All right, refresh, and they should be there. Can you show us how you want the assignment turned in again? I can try, but it's hard to see. So if you go to assignment 1, first of all, I gotta go to student view so I can see it, how you guys see it. Okay, so now, go here into, make sure you take the quiz, this quiz and this quiz. Do those tonight if you haven't already. This is important because we make sure that you can actually take the midterm and final. We're using the same system, so it's set up that way. Click here, click submit assignment, and then you'll see at the bottom here it says file upload. This is Google Drive setting. Don't use that. I think it works, but I don't know. No guarantees. And then hit browse, and then from there, you know, go to assignment 1. Like let's say you have a C++ solution file or something like that, right? You click on that and you'll see it here. And then you can hit add another file. Yep, bye. And then click submit assignment, and that's it. And you want to do that if your file is in Ubuntu, then you want to do it through Ubuntu. Otherwise, find a way of transferring it to your machine. But just wherever the file is, you want to go to the website this way. That way on the browse here, you can find it, okay? If you have problems opening a browser within Ubuntu, you can there are ways to transfer files between the VirtualBox and the host machine. Google again to do that potentially. So yeah, okay. After you submit it, it should show somewhere up here your submission. Then you can go ahead and download it and check it to make sure that it's submitted. Okay. If you want me to verify, you can at me or the TA to verify whether you submitted successfully, and we can go in there and check. So feel free to submit and then send me a message or the TA, and we can go in there and just this time, I don't want to have to do this every single time, but I can go in there and verify that you've actually submitted a working file. Okay. Yes, it's only allowing the C++ file, so you have to name your file correctly. So like cs135hw1.cpp. This is because that's the file you're supposed to turn in. Otherwise, you're turning in something that's wrong. Okay. I will be on Discord if anything. Otherwise, I will go ahead and stop the recording so that I can start uploading it. Thank you guys for coming in. Hopefully now you did your first real program and you're on your way to learn more cool things. So have a good night. If not, I'll see you here. We shall do tomorrow at 7 p.m. again. But there is that poll on Discord for the new times, so please go ahead and fill that out so that we can figure out what the best time is for everybody, okay? See you guys tomorrow, and stay safe. Yes.